well as Dan Sodergren, tech expert and a dad as well. Dan, morning.
Morning.
Let's put these two together as a parent, but also an expert in technology and what's happening with it and what it can do. What's the right age to get your child a mobile phone?
Well, I certainly don't want to be biting the hands that feed me. I've been working with telecoms and people like O2 and Vodafone for many, many years and training them in marketing and doing all sorts. So I'm certainly not here to besmirch the industry. But what I would say, just as the other caller was saying, I think the secondary school point is a really, really, that's a really good time that they can start having a mobile device. And I hate to say it as well, you can always use phones that aren't necessarily smartphones. Of course, I'm showing my age there by saying the word smartphone, as all teenagers would just laugh at me for saying smartphones. But, they could have a dumb device, so to speak. You remember Nokias and those things back in the day. So there are ways you could do this where you could introduce them to it. I think there's a bigger thing around social media and other things. You've got to remember, of course, if they are on social media and they are less than 13 years old, that's actually, then they're not meant to be. That is a problem. So even though the other caller was saying perhaps you shouldn't be looking on their phones, etc., I actually think you most probably should be as a parent. I'm a little bit more Attila the Hun-like, as he was saying. I'm a little bit more like that. I think if you could use things like this Google Family Link and there's other things that you can use where you can see what your teenager is doing on their phone and how long they're on it for. And actually, I think that's kind of part of our parental responsibility nowadays in this new world of technology, to make sure that we do know, not necessarily what the content they're viewing and what they're seeing, but definitely that you have searches on and you have safeties and filters on there, because these tech companies aren't necessarily going to be thinking about your child. They're just thinking about them as a consumer, as a customer.
And time spent on phones is a big issue as well. So how does it, because this is your business, Dan, tech is your business. Young Sodergren Jr., growing up, seeing you on your phone, how do you deal with that? Do you explain, look, this is my work, so I need to be on it as much as I am?
Well, you've got to do both things, haven't you? You've got to be the parent, so you've got to explain the situation. I think we've got to have a kind of digital green cross code, so to speak, when we start talking to young people about how to use technology. But also, you've got to do it in a responsible way as well. So I don't think you can say to them, oh, well, I'm on my phone all the time, you shouldn't be. I think you've also got to start showing them, actually, this is what Dad does. Dad makes sure that he's not on too late at night. He makes sure that it's not charging up in the same room, and he's trying to limit his own usage as well. So you've got to do that. But of course, technology, these phones allow you to do so much on them, play games, watching TV, etc., etc. So again, when you're talking about usage, it's not just the phone itself, like using WhatsApp, etc. It's using the phone for a myriad of different things. So you've got to start looking at both sides of the equation, which is why I think actually having something on the phone which shows you what they're doing with the device is no bad thing.
So talk us through those, the apps that you recommend to monitor behaviour.
Well, I don't want to sell an advert for Google Family Link, but that's the one that we use. And so as a parent, you can see what they're doing on that. And that's free and it's downloadable on your Android, but you can also use it on an iPhone as well. So the nice thing about that is not only can you see what they're doing, but you can also limit what they're doing. You can also talk about when should the phone itself turn off, which what we did when my daughter had a phone very early on. We started to make sure the machine could turn itself off at, as the other caller said, I think 10 o'clock was one of the times, but she was a lot younger, so it's 8 o'clock. So we started looking at the timing issue first, and then we started teaching her, these are the bits you're allowed on, where you're not allowed on, making sure that you've got YouTube is one of the bigger ones, so make sure you've got the child-friendly version of YouTube, and without being too anti-Snapchat and those other ones, you've got to really look into them not using things like Snapchat when they're very young, because they can be highly addictive, and, as I say, you're not meant to be really on them until you're over 13 anyway.
Yeah, and TikTok as well, obviously. Dan, thanks so much. Good advice there, Dan Sodergren there, and Ciara McClaverty.